Hello, everyone. Back with another episode of With Love Soleil. And something I wanted to touch on today that I think is important to consider, in particular when it comes to relationships and your relationship to yourself, is giving yourself this permission to hard reset your relationships. I think a lot of times in close relationships, certain dynamics come into play. And when they happen over and over again, it's almost like there's this subconscious expectation that this dynamic is going to be what it is. So when this person says or does this thing, this person is going to say or do this thing in response to the first action. And, that can go anywhere from um, someone teasing someone and it being cute and funny and this person responding in this way, or someone, say making a decision for the two of you that the other person didn't get a say in, right? My point is that it can be any nuance, like facet of the relationship that in time it sort of becomes normal, if you will, within the relationship. And I think it's really important for us to look at what we normalize in our relationships because our relationships are truly the testing ground, the real integration space for your own becoming. And so if you're working on something, say boundaries or, saying no or active listening or whatever it is that you're working on that can be really well worked on in relationships, what we find is when you're sort of using your relationships as your testing ground for your own becoming, then when it's a relationship that has lasted, say, a long time, especially those that have lasted a long time, like family and longtime friends, that you have to be able to show up differently because otherwise you're repeating the cycle by way of not wanting to disturb the dynamic of the relationship, and it's keeping you in the loop of who you've already really grown out of, except in this dynamic. And so suddenly you're still like this outdated version of you in your relationships, but when you're by yourself or when you're maybe meeting new people or in your role or whatever it is, that's when you're showing up different. So you're actually abandoning your growth when you don't hard reset your relationships, when you don't at least say in some capacity, I need you to know that I'm going to be showing up a little bit differently in this way or in general because I've been doing work on myself and I'm noticing that this is a pattern I have in relationships that's not serving me anymore. And it's a hard thing to say and it's kind of awkward because then it's kind of like, then it kind of puts you on the spot of like when that dynamic does come up that you both are now aware that you might probably should be moving differently. And then it's up to you. Obviously, there's kind of the accountability there for you to then actually do something different. But the other option is always, of course, space. And maybe I'm just a raging Scorpio in this, but I have always utilized space in my relationships when I can feel like there's too many dynamics present on either side, mine or theirs, where this is it's kind of an antiquated way of they if they're existing or of mine, and I can feel that the growth is not going to be had together. It's almost like the relationship as it has existed has expired. And in order to continue forward with this person, there has to be a hard reset. And for me, and because I'm like a space taking type of person, like if I get really upset or mad about something, I'll take space because I like to figure out what a part of this is mine, clear the charge out because the charge is always indicative of it being my own work. Once the charge is clear, then I can come back and discuss it with the person without the charge, without my own projection onto them. And just to say, hey, this is what really actually I'm bothered me about the situation without the whole baggage of my stuff, right? So I think space is healthy. Now, I think it's also important to communicate that you're taking space and maybe, give some sort of container around that. So it's not going to be 6 years before I text you back, or whatever it is. I think in healthy relationships, you do that. And sometimes you don't always know because you might need a month to sometimes a year. I mean, in my family relationships where I have done this, I did take years and I needed those years and the relationship needed those years because it was also in my absence that they were able to actually maybe look at what I needed that much space from. So I think space is healthy, but I think there's a way to do it that's not weaponizing it. But all in all, there are seasons of relationships that once the season has ended, it's like you can't even operate in your full capacity around this person anymore because your growth is not welcome here, or because you're operating in outdated dynamics and ways of existing that you like can't even vibrationally carry anymore because you left them in the past, but they're still being called forward in this relationship. So I think relationships are a really awesome, powerful test for us to communicate our growth and to communicate new boundaries and new needs. Anybody who knows in relationships, it can be difficult to place new boundaries, especially when they're really long-standing relationships and you've let stuff slide for too long, the same behaviors that you don't like, and you just let it slide because you don't want to pick the battle or you don't want to have a fight or whatever it is. And you've just let it slide over and over and over again until the place where you have so much resentment that you can't stand not only the pattern, but the person at some point because it's like such an old thing that's not working for you, never worked for you, but because you didn't put the boundary up, they just kept going with the habit that you never liked to begin with. And suddenly you're just under this mountain of it having happened so many times that you can't stand it anymore. And, the invitation obviously would be to, even if you didn't put the boundary right away, to place it at some point to say, I know you've done that before and I laughed it off then, but it's really not working for me. And the thing with boundaries and the thing with resetting relationships is you do have to be willing to lose the relationship because not everybody's on the same growth pattern as you. Not everyone is on their growth edge like you are. And so sometimes even just saying, hey, I've grown and I don't like it that you do this and it's not working for me anymore will be a trigger for them because they're not growing. And so it's reflecting to them that they don't have any areas where they need to ask you to do things differently because they're the same person they've been all along. And it's not a judgment, it's just an objective reality. And there are plenty of people out here who are not growing and are not focused on that. And that's just what it is. And that doesn't mean we can't be in some form of a relationship with them, but we have to understand that as you grow, you become more and more of a mirror for other people. I sincerely do believe that the natural way of existing is through growth, that our whole reality is asking us and encouraging us to grow. And so if you're not growing at all, you're actually working against your own reality and you're creating this resentment towards yourself where you're not even spending any moment of self-reflection. And so the world is going to have to kind of harsh mirror you pretty quickly to say like, there's more of you to come online that you're absolutely adamantly avoiding by abandoning yourself and working 16-hour days just to like be productive. And yet your soul is like suffering and dissolving into itself because you haven't spent a second just nurturing it through self-reflection, through meditation, through stillness practices where your soul gets to like, hey, I got something to tell you. And it comes out. That's what happens in stillness practices. That's why people avoid it because a lot of people literally don't know what's going to happen in this big, spooky, scary area of their internal paradigm. And so then they just end up projecting it out all day long or avoiding the mirror that is their reality and not growing at all. And, that's their life. That's what they want to do. That's fine. But if, say, it's a family member or someone you've known for a long time that you value the relationship, even if that's how they move, you still have to be able to grow. You still have to be able to continue to show up new. And sometimes it does take space because it's almost like you can't, it's gone so far that you can't actually do it in real time where you say one day, hey, I'm doing new boundaries today. And the next day, new boundaries that have been implemented. It's quite difficult. It's not impossible, but it is quite difficult to do it that way. If you can, fantastic. If you're a strong boundary, healthy boundaried person, by all means, do it that way if that feels what feels good to you. I also think spaciousness is nice because what you can do is offer them like, hey, you do this thing that I really don't like. I've actually never liked it, but I let it slide because I didn't want to like hurt your feelings or set a boundary that felt uncomfortable for me. But at this point, I can't actually allow you to continue to do that thing. And, and that might create distance or space, or they might rage against your machine of your mirror of telling them about themselves. Like there's 100 different ways that conversation can go. And sometimes it is nice to have a little space after you say something like that, because then it tells them, I'm not willing to continue on unless you're willing to like at least kind of meet me halfway here or work on this together within the container of our relationship. And so it gives them that little opportunity to self-reflect. Will everybody use it? Probably not. I would say that in the times that I have done this, I'm not convinced that they necessarily use the spaciousness to try to wonder like why I might be taking this kind of like very drastic space. And that's what it is, because you're not doing it. On the one hand, you are doing it for them, you're doing it for them, you're doing it for the relationship, and you're doing it for yourself. You're doing it for everybody ultimately. And it's up to them whether or not they utilize it to the benefit of themselves and their relationship and therefore you. So what they do in the space, what they do with the gift that you've given them of the potentiality of like, hey, I don't like that you do this. I encourage you to look at why do you do that and what's behind that, And And some people will and some people won't. And so you're not asking for the space necessarily to expect them to behave in any particular way with space. They might just be pissed at you because you're pulling your energy back and they're used to having it, and that might just be how that goes until you come back. And that's what it's going to be. And then still you're deciding if that's a relationship you want to continue to be in, wherein they're just going to be pissed at you for pulling energy back instead of actually looking at the problem. That's a lot of people, to be honest, in relationships do operate in that way. But at the end of the day, we're going to constantly meet up against dynamics and relationships that simply cannot continue on with you as you grow and evolve. And as you are someone who steps into healthier boundaries and healthier sovereignty and healthier self-expression and healthier speaking your truth, right? And it's beautiful, and I think the healthiest of relationships could say, wow, I love that you are realizing that about yourself. And I totally honor that. I'll work on it. I might still slip and get it wrong. And I invite you to like let me know that I've done that. But I respect that you're growing and I respect that this is the next level for you. And I value our relationship enough to encourage you down that path, right? But the point is, oftentimes, and especially if you're someone who struggles with boundaries, I'm talking to myself here. I have always really struggled with boundaries. And only in my kind of, I would say in the past, say 5 years or so, have I really actively been working on them. And still sometimes in the initial phases of a relationship, friendship, whatever it is, I still struggle. It's like I'm showing up in my full self, I'm overgiving, like the kind of usual transcript of being like a open-hearted, like person who struggles with boundaries. And then then I find myself constantly, like within, a month or two of this kind of relationship turning on, that like, God, I should have set that boundary. I should have not showed up so big in that way. I should have not overgiven. It's like suddenly I have to like scale way back. And, I have to be able to communicate that to this person who like sort of knows me at this point, but thinks that they know a certain version of me that I don't even want to be anymore. And this is what really being on the self-growth journey looks like, is that you're constantly outgrowing yourself. And the best teacher and one of the best mirrors is other people. And the people who are really down for the ride and really down for you and really respect and honor your growth and your path, whether they're growing or not, will say, all right, cool. Like, if I say, God, I really feel like I was showing up too much, I was over giving. And so you're going to feel me pull back in this way. Or I feel like I let a lot more slide than I would have liked to have let slide for me to feel safe. And so I'm going to start setting different boundaries. And if they respect you enough, boom, cool. Yeah, that's fine. You could have did that from the beginning. That would have been totally fine. We would have still been carrying on, you know? But if it's someone who, say, benefits from your lack of boundaries or benefits from you being an overgiver, or is a taker, 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 so suddenly they're like, well, what does that mean? Am I not going to be getting as much here? Then, those might be the ones that fizzle out as you rearrange and reconstruct your boundaries later on. And as I'm working on, and I strongly encourage you to work on, I think it's always very helpful to have almost stronger boundaries up front, because it is more difficult to place them later when you've already gotten to know each other, when the energetic dynamic has already begun to construct itself. So then suddenly you're like, you have this kind of tidal wave of the relationship, and you're trying to put a dam where you never had one. And so it's like, it's awkward, and it's significantly more difficult. So I encourage you, as someone who struggles with boundaries myself, to work on boundaries right away. And because it sometimes can be so, you're in the hi joy of meeting someone for the first time, and it's fun and you're having a great time together, and you want to laugh and play, and like relationships get hard, and you have to be able to like notice, oh, I just let that slide, or I didn't like that they do that, I don't like that they bring this out of me. It's almost real time reconfiguration of yourself in the container of the relationship. And sometimes it does get to a place where you're like, God, there's way too many things here that are not working for me, that I don't even like texting this person back as much as I love them like 2 weeks ago. Now it's just like this mountain of stuff that I really have never addressed, and I just don't even like this person anymore. But really what it is that you don't like the relationship that you yourself have contributed to. And if you value the person, then you'll be able to say, basically what I've just said, but maybe in a nicer way. I value you, but I don't like the dynamics of our relationship, and they're really not working for me. And I'm wondering if we can find a new way to do this. Sometimes it is. You take a couple weeks of space, you don't talk for a few days, or whatever it is, where you can both just kind of reset your energy, maybe reimagine how you would like to be in relationship with this person, and then you can re-enter with different energy and kind of clear the mountain and not just continue to sweep stuff under the rug, but actually address the things that bother you and show up in a different way with different boundaries and with a different backbone and different levels of sovereignty and self-awareness so that you can nip things in the bud instead of showing up with this mountain where you literally just can't stand this person anymore. You just have to get out and it's your ghost time, for your final act, you've turned into a ghost. Like, and for some people, it might be that in time you realize, like, this is just really not a vibrational match for me. And there's nothing wrong with that. Not everybody can come with you. You're going to meet tons of people on the journey, romantic friendship, business partnership, whatever it is. And, maybe half, I mean, there's not even a percentage that can come with you, but a lot of them cannot, is what I will say. And it's not even personal because sometimes the bond was only meant to come in to teach you about this way that you exist in relationships. So you can look at that and do it differently next time. But this person wasn't actually meant to stay. They were just meant to teach you this little fragment expansion of you knowing yourself better. And there's nothing wrong with that. Forever is a freaking fable. Forever is like a Disney tale fable that we've been taught to think, oh, people are going to be forever. We're going to be best friends forever. We're going to da 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 forever, forever, forever. Guys, forever is really a fable. If you're on your growth edge, you know that there's nothing about you that's even forever except maybe the very true essence of who you are. Beyond that, your self-expression is going to be always evolving, moving, changing, shifting, and becoming more. And so you should be able to know that's going to also happen in your external reality because it's your mirror. And so naturally in relationships and with people, some people only come in for 6 days to teach you this one thing that you don't want to learn and you're not willing to look at, but they're the perfect mirror for it and you have the perfect energetic exchange for it. So if you extract the lesson, all it takes is 6 days, da, 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 see you next lifetime. They don't have to stay. And some people will. Some people will stay longer for 6 days than 6 days, obviously. But to me, it's not right or wrong or good or bad. Like, it's not that I have anything against the people who did not get to stay. In fact, I respect that we were able to exchange and learn, and I will always extract the lessons that they gave me, and then I'll keep it moving. Because, some people don't stay. But if you value the relationship, you're going to be willing to continue to fine tune it. A relationship is an active identity. It's an active entity between the two of you. There's you, there's me, there's we. There's three entities here. And so if I value the we, then I'm going to work on it. I'm going to give a little love to it. I'm going to spend time with it. I'm going to nurture it. I'm going to water it. Like if I really value a relationship, I will do that. And it seems like I'm doing it for you, but really ultimately I'm doing it for we. Because when this relationship is thriving, I'm thriving and you're thriving. So there's mutual benefit to we being happy and fed and nourished and taken care of. And those are going to be like the closest relationships, right? And then there's any spectrum of relationships beyond that where you might not be spending a lot of time nurturing them. They're, a distant cousin, say, that you just check in with once or twice a year. It's perfect amount for the relationship. You still feel like you can be in each other's lives and you don't really need more than that. So, you're discerning constantly who gets that closeness from you, who gets to be watered from you, who gets the conversation around needing things to be different. I mean, that's an intimate conversation. It requires a very close relationship to even be able to say that. And not everybody's worthy of that, especially those who are going to be mad about it. You have to really wonder, is that someone who you really want to continue on with if they're going to be mad because you're saying like, there's too much here for me that's not working, that I need to reset my energy and then come back from a different space. If they're going to be upset about that, they can't give you a week to just recalibrate. That's like a huge red flag, right? So I say all this to say, if you find yourself in relationships with people where you're like, it's like, I'm just starting to feel this kind of like almost like an ick or like a resentment or just, like a repulsion, then look at it and ask yourself, is this a relationship I value or is this a person that I value having in my life? And if so, let me start to kind of chip away at that ick because otherwise it's going to get to the place where you can't even text back. And you're just gone totally ghost because you don't even have the energy to even try to work it out. So if you value it, work it out before it gets there. and ask for space or ask for what you need or set new boundaries or communicate what's on your heart or communicate that that resentment is there and you're trying to work out what it is before you even feel ready to talk to them about it. Because the other thing, as I've said earlier, a lot of it's us. Sometimes I find like I'm so mad at myself because I did not set these boundaries this whole time, and then I have resentment to them. But really, it's at least 50% me. Because if I had just set the boundaries, I wouldn't be feeling this at all. So that sounds like a little more than 50% to me. But if I value the relationship, then I will ask for the space to set the boundaries and then come back in and say, you might feel me move a little different. And that's not personal. It's actually because I value you. But it is to say that how it was going before, it was not working for me. And that's healthy. It's beautiful. It's open communication, transparent communication is very beautiful. And in healthy relationships, it will be valued and rewarded. So that feels present because I think as we continue to rise and evolve and grow as like the 144K, whatever you want to call us, I love the term 144K, but just people, leaders of the new, and we want people to be able to come with us and we value and cherish our relationships, then these conversations need to be had. And we're teaching other people how to do that when we do that. Even if it's uncomfortable for them at first, they're going to take it personally or project onto you or whatever it is. Okay, that's fine. Okay, I'm gonna let you sit with that. You take your space too. When I come back, when we come back, we'll see if we can make this happen again. If not, there's no love lost. I appreciate everything we've done together. There's no love lost. I just feel like we're not a vibrational match, you know? So I wanted to bring that into the container today because I felt like something that we could all work on collectively and just being better at transparent, honest, open communication and speaking what's on your heart and what you need and letting yourself grow in the container of relationships. Because it's important and it's going to take you really far and it's going to make for really healthy relationships. So, all right, guys, that's what I got. Love y'all. See you next week.